Hello everyone, and thanks for joining me. Today we're taking a look at MX Master, VR's newest platformer from Toast Interactive, the studio responsible for Richie's Plank experience. MX Master is a charming third-person platformer full of beautiful environments and creativity. There isn't really much of a story here. You're trying to get to the end of each stage and free as many mudkips along the way as possible. I think this guy here has something to do with why all these mudkips are being locked away, but it's only really ever implied. Performance-wise, the game runs great. On launch, it runs at Quest 2 resolution, and you can definitely tell when playing on a Quest 3. But there are Quest 3 visual improvements on the way. And by the time you watch this video, maybe that update has already dropped. For me personally, I just used the Quest game optimizer to up the resolution, and it looks great. The animations are wonderful and lively, and the game is full of colorful charm, and as a PSVR enthusiast, I dig the art style and the visuals. Now, let's talk gameplay. So on a scale from Moss to Astrobot, what kind of platformer is MX Master? Well, it's much closer to Astrobot. It's very rooted in jumping-based platforming with some light combat to further reinforce that platforming. There are a lot of fun and creative platforming elements here, and some unique to VR mechanics sprinkled in to keep things fresh. And if you haven't played a VR platformer before, MX is a great place to start, and it's a very immersive game. It's undeniably cool to have a godlike perspective of the world and watch MX get shot out of cannons above your head. And Toast Interactive does a marvelous job of conveying scale to the player in both its boss fights and its ever-changing and evolving levels. Sometimes when you first load into a scene, it's just fun to look at and take it all. It's a playground just begging to be jumped on with a few bullies sprinkled in. But there really isn't a ton of meaningful combat in this game, like say you would find in Moss. You won't be hacking and slashing through enemies. You basically just Mario or Crash Bandicoot them to death. There are a few other ways to dispatch them, but that's primarily how you'll be taking them down. From its combat to its platforming, it's very evident that MX is geared towards a more casual or younger audience. And that really isn't a bad thing, but I'm just not its target audience. But I most certainly still had fun and enjoyed my time playing MX Master, and I found it best to play in smaller spurts. The difficulty just isn't quite there to keep me around for long play sessions. And after a time, it does start to feel like, okay, yeah, I've kind of done this jump before and landed on that guy before. But each time I loaded up MX Master, I still had fun playing. And like I said before, casual and younger gamers will really get a lot out of this game, and for quite a long time. MX Master has anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of content, and I think that's pretty impressive and well worth the asking price, if this is your type of game. And for me, this is where the flaws in MX Master start to leak out of the bottle. The game is just a bit too casual and quite frankly too easy for what I wanted. I enjoy a good challenge, and MX Master just isn't that challenging. The enemies are very uninspiring and oftentimes provide next to no threat at all. Many of them you can simply just walk around or sidestep and never have to worry about. Killing them is incredibly easy. If you can dodge this slow-moving fireball and then press jump, you can beat pretty much any standard enemy in this game at the time of your choosing. In fact, for large portions of the game, it felt like most enemies were designed around being a slightly more difficult way to gather coins, and not really designed to be a threat. But the good news is the coins in this game, they actually have a purpose. They are used to upgrade MX. And you get stuff like new attacks, more health, movement speed, or longer boost. But none of it is really all that necessary. There wasn't a single time in this game when I said, oh, I wish I had unlocked this upgrade by now, or wished I had got something sooner. In fact, most of the time, I didn't really feel the need to use any of the additional upgrades or powers. And the ones that are useful made the game even easier and even less of a challenge, which is just something I don't really jive with. I think it would have been better if the later stages in the game were specifically designed around new unlocked mechanics. MX Master never forces you to use these upgrades to progress further into the game, and I think because of that, they feel a little inconsequential. But Max Mustard still manages to keep things fresh and sprinkles in new ideas. But sometimes a sprinkle just isn't enough. Remember when I said the enemies feel like another way to collect coins? Well, that's also true of some of Max's level design and platforming. If you're not into collecting these coins, chances are there's an easier way to get past some of its platforming challenges. Oftentimes you can just jump across gaps, skipping portions of the level entirely. And when you do die, it can feel tedious to go back and collect those same coins again. I would have preferred a more permanent collection system where if you die, you don't have to go back and get the same coins or break the same boxes again. It just gets a little tedious. And the difficulty in this game actually feels entirely optional. And here's an example. I could easily just jump to this next section here, avoiding the tricky bit over there. If you want those coins, you gotta master the challenge. But if you're like me and think just the coins don't make that big of a difference, especially when the upgrades kind of don't make that big of a difference, well, I just didn't feel all that motivated to get every single coin. It's just easier and safer to skip past them. Don't get me wrong, I still took on the challenge and collected those coins a lot. But if things ever got really difficult, I knew I could probably just find a way to skip the challenge entirely. Now, I certainly died in Max Mustard, and so will you. It's not devoid of all challenge, but the motivation to get every coin just wasn't really there for me. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I was gathering cosmetic upgrades or some other kind of completion bonus in addition to the coins. But it's just coins. If I need more, I can just farm an easy level. I think my favorite parts of Max Mustard were the boss fights and when it used VR to its fullest. The game is at its best when it's more difficult and a self-co-op where you use motion controls to help Max get from A to B. There are some sections where you are multitasking and shooting stuff out of the air or creating platforms for Max to jump on, but don't go into this game expecting a lot of that. These sections were just too few and far between, maybe something like 10 of the 40 stages. It just left me wanting more VR interactions. I find that kind of multitasking fun and unique, but I think it would have greatly increased the difficulty, which is something I just don't think Toast Interactive wanted to do. And quite frankly, I respect them for that. They set out to make a game that would appeal to VR's wide casual audience, and they greatly succeeded at that. Look, I know I sounded pretty negative for a while there, but again, I did enjoy my time with Max Mustard. It has a lot of great creative moments and level designs, but it just missed the mark in some key areas for me, a person who's more of a hardcore gamer. And it's not as creative or as engaging as something like Astrobot, but it definitely doesn't have that same level of budget behind it either. So, do I recommend Max Mustard? Well, quite frankly, yes I do, if you're that casual gamer looking for a fun platformer and something maybe to just relax and play. It has a lot of content and it's quite charming. It's incredibly polished in a very well-made game that just screams quality. But if you want a challenge, or are maybe more of a hardcore gamer, like say the Dark Souls type, then no, this probably isn't the game for you, but not every game is for everyone. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this useful. If you did, let me know in the comments, and do the whole like and subscribe thing. Next, I'm debating on playing Mixture now, after playing Max Mustard. Let me know if you think I would enjoy that game more. Thanks, and catch you next time.